All right, welcome to another episode of Behind the Agency. This week, I'm excited to talk with Jacob Miller. He is the marketing and brand manager at the dev agency Headway. And yeah, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, good to be here.
Awesome. Well, I always like to start things off with just kind of the backstory on Headway. And I know that you were uh, kind of early stage with Headway and have kind of seen it through a lot of growth.
hmm
Um, so can you talk a little bit more about kind of the what you know of at least of the origin story and kind of the key milestones that have kind of surrounded its growth over the years?
Sure. Yeah, we're almost September will be our 10-year anniversary, which is kind of crazy. I've been here almost 8 years. So again, most of the life of Headway. But it started in 2015. There were originally four partners. It was Andrew, his brother Eric, John Kinney, and then also Chris Schmitz, who is no longer at the company. He went to pursue like other things after the first couple years of being in the agency. Um, but they basically started the agency because they were all working separately as like contractors or freelancers within design, development, and then maybe some product strategy. And eventually they would get co-contracted onto projects. So they were, maybe collaborating together here and there. But a lot of it was like them just kind of getting frustrated with the process and approach that a lot of companies were using to basically do design, do development. And they just knew there was a better way, and obviously Silicon Valley was like, sharing whatever insights they could share on like Twitter. Hey, here's what product strategy looks like in, 2014, 2015. Here's what you should be doing, at the time, all the blogs and everything like that. And now it's just been overly amplified now on LinkedIn and just other places as well. And now there's like great platforms like Reforge and stuff like that. But they wanted to be kind of part of that movement. And so, yeah, so they decided to band themselves together, land a couple key clients initially, and then over time it just kind of evolved into working with early stage founders, working with more mature founders that are Series A, Series B, and beyond, and then also like corporate like innovation projects as well. So that's kind of the origin story of it. Um, I don't know much else to go off of that,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah, that's kind of the origin story.
And you said you came on like a couple of years in, but you knew the founder personally, right?
Yep, and
Or one
yeah,
of
so
them.
in 2017 I joined Headway, yeah, so Andrew had already been like co-hosting, and along with Chris, who's one of the original partners, um, local meetups in the area. Again, this was like I think they started doing like 2013 or so. So they already were hosting local meetups as like a nonprofit effort called Digital Fertilizer, which is no longer around. Now we do Startup Wisconsin. That's kind of what it morphed into. But they were doing like kind of it started as like a coffee meetup for like founders and people that worked in tech in like 2013 2014, and then it evolved into a more formal gathering. Like they created a meetup.com group, and then every month was like founder storytelling, or a venture capitalist or an angel investor would come and share, here's the kind of things I'm looking for, and founders could answer their questions because if they're looking to raise stuff like that, or maybe just organizations in the area would just share like how they're impacting entrepreneurs and how they're helpful and stuff like that. So I just got involved because I found it. I can't remember if they shared things on Twitter or I just found it on meetup.com. And I just started showing up, taking photos, and just trying to spread the word as much as I could to anyone that I met, and just, share what was going on. Cause and that it's kind of goes into like where we are today, where it's like with Startup Wisconsin, it's like half the battle of startups, founders, and tech in Wisconsin is the visibility and the awareness around, hey, like what's going on with founders in startups in Wisconsin? Most people don't really know how to answer that question. There
Yeah.
isn't a source for it. And so we're trying to solve that problem and just amplify what's already happening. So, yeah.
Yeah. Has that been more of a way for you to kind of keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening in the startup world there? Or is it also kind of a little bit of like kind of a growth strategy where it's like, a place to build relationships with people who could become clients?
Yeah. I think like, I don't know if you really go down to the intention of like why like Andrew and Chris and the other folks that were involved in the early days, and then just me getting involved, like we were genuinely curious and just wanted to like, we want this kind of community where we live. Like that was basically it.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, hey, we're gonna like put on these things and then like hopefully we'll get some sales conversations going, and we can pitch these things and pitch that, or we can talk about our stuff. And though the comment that we get a lot today is like, you guys don't talk about yourselves enough. You need to brag more about what Headway's doing, or like what you guys can offer people. And it's just not how we do things.
Yeah.
To our own detriment, or what do you want to say? It's like, oh, well, you could be getting more out of this. But I think it just goes back to like, that's not the why. It's not like the reason why we're doing this is because we genuinely care about building a community that cares about each other and like is really focused on impact, and not just like, hey, well, what kind of ROI are we getting? Or, you know, just thinking about the sales numbers and how many leads we got like through our investment into Startup Wisconsin or Digital Fertilizer back in the day.
Yeah.
We genuinely like getting people together, and because that's just the kind of community we want. Um, and it kind of speaks for itself, because like people come out of the woodwork and are like, oh, we've been following you guys for a long time. I went to one of your events like 7 years ago or 5 years ago or 3 years
Wow.
ago, and I always knew that when I was ready, I was wanted to work with you guys. That's what we want, like kind of that brand, like the brand marketing part of it, where it's like, hey, like they're good people, they care a lot about the community, like those are the kind of people I want to work with.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, can you talk a little bit about kind of, I mean, maybe where Headway focused in the early days, where they are
Mhm.
today? I know, I mean, we'll talk in a little bit about kind of a brand that you guys spun off of
Sure.
Headway, but maybe can you talk about just like the what has acquiring new clients looked like over the years?
Yeah, early days was definitely like any work that can come our way through the website or through referrals or through a network or whatever, like let's take them, like obviously that was kind of the mentality. Anything to help grow the business or sustain it. um but now over the years it's definitely like evolved into like, hey, how do we get more specific? And we've wrestled with this a lot, and I think every agency wrestles with this, where it's like, we're an agency for anybody but not for everybody, right? Like, hey, we work with like B2B SaaS. Like that's not like a niche. Like it's like that's such a broad market. um and we've tried also just focusing down on like specific services, like, hey, let's like focus on just like UX audits, like for websites and for like software. And maybe let's do like design systems only, and we've tried all those things. And they can like work for some people, because like obviously you see success stories of people like, hey, we're going to focus on one service, or we're going to focus on like this or that. But I honestly think like for us it's just been a constant process of experimentation and figuring out like what really is our thing. Just because someone else does it and we try it doesn't mean it'll work for us, like, but it does
Right.
work for them, because whatever pieces needed to be in place and then combined with luck and timing, like it worked out for them great. But like, just if copycatting worked, like everybody would be rich, right? It's like, oh, you just
Yeah.
like kind of take this formula and you go over here and you make money. Like that's just not how it works. And we've wrestled with positioning, like how do we position ourselves? Like, well, we're um, a design and development firm, for B2B SaaS companies. And we've even like said, well, we're for Series A and beyond. Like we've said that, or we say, hey, we only serve like early stage founders that are looking to launch new products. Like we kind of tried all of it, but we kind of just found that like for Headway specifically, we've settled on the fact that because we've kind of built up a reputation, thankfully, um, through like our all of our content, through our relationships, all these different things. We're okay with us being a generalist like solution. Like, hey, anybody can come to us because we know our process and approach can be helpful to anyone, if they are willing to listen and like go through that process and approach. Um,
Right.
it's really hard to sell that though, because it doesn't resonate. It's really hard to resonate with that. But again, we've kind of gotten to a position where like, hey, we can that's kind of where Headway can sit as like an umbrella company. And now, like I'll kind of mention what you were sharing, like, hey, we kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
created like this separate subsidiary agency called Intermode, and that became industry focused. So we said, hey, what if we could do design and development services that are focused on logistics and supply chain? And even with that, like figure out where within logistics and supply chain we can make the most impact. And the reason we landed on that industry was because a lot of our past work, we realized that like 30 to 35% of our work from the last, nearly decade of Headway has been in that space. We're like, okay. And they had been like our biggest projects, our happiest clients. They actually listen to what we have to say, like whether it's training or process and approach, like, hey, they actually like are willing to listen and they're extremely content with like what we do with them. We're like, okay, cool, there's something there. And not only that, we did like 20 like deep, interviews with like different decision makers in the industry to say, hey, do you feel like there's a need for this? Like, where do you go today for like this type of service? And a lot of them are going to like the super huge firms that are recommended by consultants. And a lot of those firms, again, are like huge, like they're outsourcing their development or whatever. And they don't serve one industry. They serve all industries. They'll have a landing page for every single industry in the world on their
Yeah.
website. Right. And maybe their headcount is like 2,000 employees because again, they're just serving all these different people, but the impact that they make might not be what that company needs. So us coming in and actually talking about like things like design systems and talking about like how do you approach your MVP within your constraints, and just really thinking through like development process and design process and all that stuff, and not to just do it, but to say, hey, within your constraints, here's how you can get the best results, and we're not going to just tell you to do it because like we want to make more money. We want to do it because it's in your best interest, and we'll tell people like we're not the best fit for you because probably should go over here or go over there, or like within your budget it's probably not possible. Like just really being brutally honest with people, because we don't want to like just drag people along and tell them that like everything we're going to do for them is like going to get them what they want. Like we're going to tell them the truth, and we're not going to just say, hey, yeah, we can do all the development and we can do all the design and like it's going to be great. We're like, yeah, of course, like when people do work with us, of course it's going to be great, but usually the promise is pretty clear. Like, hey, this is what you're going to get, this is what's going to look like, here's what the next 2 weeks look like together, and then here's what the next 8 weeks look like together. Everything is like super clear. There's no like, hey, like leading people along type of thing. So but with Intermode, what's been really cool is like we've had a ton of great sales conversations, because when you say, hey, if you ask in your network, hey, do you know anybody in logistics and supply chain that's looking for software development or like needs developers or needs designers, it creates like this anchor where instead you're like, hey, do you know anybody that needs like a developer? Like that's like super vague. We're like, hey, actually, yeah, I know somebody that works at this company in logistics and they really need that. Or like they may not know if they need it, but like, oh, actually, I'm gonna go talk to Jim because he works over there and see what they're up to. And so like sometimes just creating the anchor of like industry really helps you get pulled in to the conversation or pulled into a connection. Because if you say, hey, do you know any startups? Like, well, yeah, I do, but I don't know, like,
That's
are
super
you a good
broad.
fit for them? Like, I don't know. It just sounds so broad. There's
Yeah.
just something about like being really specific with industry, that like clicks with people. At least we found that the evidence is clear. Like when we say, hey, do you know anybody in logistics? Yeah. Like I know 3 people off the top of my head right now. Or if you just say, hey, do you know anybody that needs design help? It's like, yeah, I don't know, maybe. Like it doesn't like click for some reason.
Yeah,
Um,
it's like the Chinese menu, that just has like a bazillion options, or like the what is
yeah.
it, Cheesecake Factory? It's like analysis paralysis. If they say, "Do you know somebody who needs a software product?" It's like, well, like that's super open-ended. But if
Yeah.
you give them a little bit of parameters, some guardrails to think within, it's like, oh, actually, I can think of a few people that might
Mhm.
fit the bill.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I know. Oh, you're the brand and marketing manager, and I know that content is a big um, piece of your skill set. Kind of what you bring to Headway. Can you talk a little bit about kind of your philosophy on
Yeah.
it, and kind of how that plays into kind of the customer acquisition side of things?
Yeah, so one of the first reasons why I got hired, so my background was in like video production, photography, audio engineering, and then I had been doing writing on the side, both like writing for other websites and just kind of like my own personal writing. Um, and it was one of the reasons I got hired. Andrew's like, hey, I already know you. I know the type of work you can do. And now is the time for us to hire like a legit marketer on our team instead of me as the CEO slash, doing design work at the same time. How can I like kind of, delegate that to someone else, that someone I can trust, and then eventually will lead that. And
Hmm.
that's where we got to today. So the first kind of couple years was just like, hey, let's just like establish ourselves as a brand with, have a presence online. A lot of the early things I did were more like just, writing articles with the team. We didn't do so much video around education, but we did like, hey, we're gonna do a case study video. We're gonna do things like that. We're gonna do like reels and stuff of our work. It was pretty baseline, And then over time it became, hey, Jacob's going to work with our team to create video content. Oh, am I cutting out? Is it getting all jittery?
A little bit, but it'll be fine.
Oh,
You
okay.
can fix it.
Let me start back from the top. Uh, but then over time, when I started working with the team on educational content, I started working with them on like video production. So we would have them, I would work with them basically on different concepts that we could do. So for example, with the development team, like, hey, what are some things that you're working on inside your projects that you think would be beneficial for other people to learn? So instead of just saying, hey, let's go to like Google Search Console or whatever and say, hey, what are the keywords we want to target? We didn't really go that route. We were just like, hey, what are some problems that like our clients are facing within projects, and how can we teach other people about it? Because that's really what people are dealing with in the real world. Like, yeah, of course you can learn about like baseline keywords or more specific long tail keywords, but like people have really found that our content that we share from like our real world experience has been super beneficial to them and is interesting to read or interesting to watch. Um,
Yeah.
so, so whether it was like something like migrating like your React Native app to Expo, or something that's a little more current, or getting started with design systems, like, hey, I'm a solo designer on a team. Like, how do I even think about this? Or like maybe you have a design system already, but communication's poor. Okay, how do we think through like communication and like managing the status of like components that are now in your library? All these things that I know nothing about, but I can help the design team or the development team think through, like, how do we talk about these things? And then once they kind of get their like presentation or their thoughts out there on like a Notion draft, or maybe it's like a just a quick Loom video or recording they would do, I would give them feedback before we kind of do the final thing, because I
Mhm.
would kind of look for like blind spots or be like, actually, I have a question about this. You should probably talk about this. Or what was probably the greatest thing, because we have designers working on different projects, or just multiple designers on a project, they all can like give feedback to each other and say, oh, you should probably be talking about this because last week I was dealing with that. Like, that'd be great to add in. So like we have this like really unique like feedback loop within our team, because we have all these different folks that are working on different projects, had different perspectives, but are all equally as talented. So I think I've been lucky to kind of leverage like just all these like really talented people, and then kind of coach them on like writing, and coach them on like, we'll call it public speaking, but like they're just doing a presentation. Sometimes it was live streams, but now we've kind of pulled back to not be live stream and be more like, hey, let's just start making like video content. Because we just noticed, I will say this, there was definitely like an arc of like, oh, when we took video more seriously, COVID happened, because obviously everybody was online more. And it
Right.
was, so that was kind of like a little bit of a catalyst. But the original catalyst actually was like we were hosting meetups in our town. So we did a UX meetup, and then we did a React JS meetup, and we started recording those presentations, and that's kind of what started our YouTube channel. And then once COVID hit, it was like, oh, now we can have anybody on the team from anywhere in the country start presenting stuff, and it's not like this awkward thing at an in-person event, right? Where like someone's just on camera presenting, which those are always just kind of weird.
Yeah.
And so now we got into this flow of like, okay, people are doing live presentations, they're answering questions live. Now we have people on YouTube or LinkedIn live watching, and they're asking questions. Or the comments, even like that was the thing too. It's like comments would come through months later on these videos, and it would give us ideas for another video, or it would give us feedback, or like, oh, hey, we should probably improve the way we present information like this because it's hard to read, or maybe it's hard to understand. So like it was always like these just different feedback loops in just all these different ways. And then what happened with me at the end of that is like if there was a video or an article, I would go in and then take like my kind of like SEO, expertise, whatever I've learned through my Google research on best practices for SEO. I would say, hey, here's like this article. How can I like insert keywords where it makes sense to help this thing rank? And over time, that has totally helped. And so we have things ranking on the first page. Some of them are number one. And now it's like, hey, we have this like kind of this like machine running where we're automatically getting 100,000 people on our website because of all the content on our site. We have over 500 pages on our site because of all the articles, all the past events, recordings.
Right.
just different pages, like, the templates. So like sometimes if there's a video, we'll create a template like, hey, here's how to get started with UX audits. Here's a template for running the audit. Here's a template for building your audit report, and like all these different things, or like your design system templates, or a UI kit, or whatever it may be. Like we kept just creating all these assets, whether it was like educational information or downloads, and it just slowly just built up like the traffic that we get to our site.
Yeah.
Um, so it's
And
just
then
kind of building
Google,
that machine over time.
yeah. And then Google gets a sense it's like, oh, we know to rank your site higher overall because you've talked with great depth across like this particular set of uh, areas of expertise,
Yeah, and our
right?
videos weren't like, the YouTube stereotype. Like our videos were 45 minutes, hour and a half. Like they were like full-blown presentations, and with the Q&A, like it could be like 20 minutes of answering questions, walking through things. And sometimes when they'd answer a question, Billy would open up Figma and he'd hop in a document and like run around and like explain something further for somebody.
Yeah.
um all those things. And it's I don't know, it's been really a really fun experience. And even with YouTube, it's like, a lot of people don't think that like you'll get like really really big opportunities through YouTube. Be like, oh well, maybe a startup founder will find it or whatever. But we had folks from like, Fortune 500 brands watching our content on YouTube for like 2 to 3 years, and then all of a sudden they come through our contact form and they're like, hey, we've been watching your YouTube stuff. We love your design system videos. We want you to come in, help us build a design system for all of our brands, and like also train our team on how to use it, and like get us going. Like that's like
Yeah.
crazy that's a thing. Like, so I think sometimes people think of like YouTube or, for example, like TikTok or something like that, and they're like, why would we spend our time there? Like our decision makers don't spend time there. But now we're in a time where, especially with YouTube, most people are watching YouTube. Like it's just YouTube's on your TV now. I watch YouTube on my TV all the time. I'll watch podcast interviews. I'll watch, whatever. If I don't want to watch Netflix or something, like I just want to, maybe learn something new or whatever, about a
Yeah.
certain topic, whether it's about my personal health, because I'm like, hey, I went to the doctor. I want to learn more about this topic. Like, is my doctor recommending me the thing? You just start doing all those things.
Yeah.
I want a second opinion through YouTube. You just start to kind of go down the rabbit hole. But people end up in the rabbit hole, and sometimes you're in that rabbit hole for some reason, or you get all of a sudden recommended because they were looking up a topic. They may not have ended up on your video the first time, but then all of a sudden, because you had a similar topic video, you end up being recommended over time. It's crazy how the recommendations work. It's just, it's wild. So like YouTube works for you if you're putting out stuff that's actually valuable.
Yeah.
That's like the most important part about it, is like if you're putting stuff out, think in your thought process is like, this video is going to benefit us, you're not going to win. You want to say, hey, I want to make something that teaches people something and it benefits them. Like that's really all we really think about, is like, how can we be as helpful as possible? That's like our kind of core philosophy with like everything we're doing. Can we be helpful? Like, can we help somebody get unstuck, solve a problem? And we're just learning that the more specific we get, the better. So yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's huge. It builds trust, I think, ultimately, and trust, you know, whether you like it or not, like is the currency that helps bring in new businesses and agencies. You know, because a lot of times it's not a small ticket item that you're pitching. Like it's, you know, 5 figure, 6 figure, maybe 7 figure projects. You know, and
Mhm.
so that's not going to happen through a paid ad or something like that, or you know, not for
Yeah.
something that price point. So yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely experienced that. Well, another thing we've talked about beforehand is kind of the importance of like referral networks with, you know, other agencies, sometimes software providers, things like that. And I know that's something that you guys have worked in. Can you talk a little bit about kind of what that's looked like for you guys, and kind of if you formalized that today, or if it's still like if it's more of a um, you know, fast and loose sort of program?
Sure. Yeah. Our goal is to like make it very formal. Actually have like a dashboard, that kind of thing. something that we're working on behind the scenes. And but right now it's pretty casual where we say, hey, with anyone that works with us, or if we're reconnecting with maybe older clients or old friends, we can say, hey, do you know anybody in your network that's needs help with designer development? Um, did you know that you can benefit from that? Like, here's how we thank you for it. And right now we have a system in place where they're financially thanked for that, so they'll get a percentage of the contract that gets signed. And then there's like some term limits, up to a certain point, like, hey, after a while, like, hey, your fair share of getting that contract to us has been kind of depleted. And then moving forward, like, any
Yeah.
until you get another referral, basically, we'll then share the wealth, basically. So right now it's casual. We kind of extend the offer to them. We show them how it works. And then but right now is like, it's hard. The only visibility is like through email communications and stuff like that. But we would love to like build like an actual dashboard where, like, hey, you can log in and you can submit a referral to us, or the introduction, and then you can track the progress of like where it is in our sales pipeline. And then,
Yeah.
like, if it gets closed, here's what your reward will be for doing that, because people should be rewarded for, like, hey, if we're going to get $100,000 contract, we should thank you somehow. We're not going to
Yeah.
send you a t-shirt or a mug. We're going to be like, hey, here's $5,000. Thank you so much. Like, this is
Yeah.
amazing. Like that, like, in our mind, it's like the cost of marketing, the cost of hiring a salesperson. It's like, it's kind of the equal thing there. But yeah, so far it's been pretty beneficial. And it's, I think some people have like a weird thing about that, like an awards program or something, like, I don't want to like pay people for referrals. um but I think it's more of us just being like generous, like, hey, thank you so much, like, this is like seriously like amazing that you even gave us this introduction. We want to make sure that you're compensated and thanked for that.
Yeah.
So that's how we think about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we want to formalize it, but it's also just been a process, and just having the capacity to figure out, like, okay, what does this look like? How do we make it easy to understand? Like, what do we really need from this person? What do they need from us? Like, all that kind of stuff. So processing
Yeah.
payments, like, hey, do we use Stripe to just like send the stuff over? Just thinking through all the little things. But yeah.
When you think about like developing new partnerships, are there certain things you're looking for? Um, I guess, what do you think of as a good fit? And what do you think, like, if you were giving advice to another agency, marketing person or agency founder about, hey, don't make this mistake that we did, or do this thing when you're building out your program, what sort of advice would you give them?
For the referral program?
Yeah, just, I mean, just as far as like identifying people who, you know, they should partner with in the first place.
Yeah. I don't know if I could speak to that.
Yeah.
That's definitely probably more of an Andrew question. Yeah. I wish I could. I wish I mean, ultimately, like, you want to ask people that you do genuinely trust. Like, I don't like, that's how I kind of feel about it. Like, if that's kind of my gut with it, where I feel like, kind of like a, because you'd be surprised, like, who knows who. Like, that's kind of how we feel. But, like, I don't think you want to like put people in boxes immediately, but at the same time, like, if you're going to ask this person, you should probably have a pretty strong relationship with them already. You shouldn't be like going into your LinkedIn network and being like, oh, I know this person from 10 years ago, or I worked with them at a company 10 years ago, and we were good friends there, but I haven't talked to him since. I'm going to say, hey, we have a referral program and you can get awarded 5% of the contract for the first year, or whatever you want to say. Like, uh, it's just different. It's just not gonna hit the, I don't know. That to me is like cold outbound, basically, which is not what it's meant to be.
Yeah.
But yeah.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Um, well, when you think about, you said you've been there, I think, did you say 8 years?
Yeah,
Um,
almost 8 years, yeah.
do you, like, what do you, I guess, where do you see the direction of the agency moving forward? Do you think um, that kind of the spin-off agency will take off more, or do you think you'll spin off other agencies? Like, I guess, I know some of that probably stuff, some of that is kind of outside of your scope, but
Sure.
what do you, just kind of based off of how things have gone over the years, where do you see things going over the next few years?
Yeah, I mean, the leadership team has shared, like their bigger long-term vision. Intermode wasn't part of that like a few years ago. Like it just was like, hey, within the last couple years, we're like we're like, let's make this bet together, like that we're gonna do this subsidiary agency. Um, but I will say that like we kind of have like we call them big, hairy, audacious goals, the
Yeah.
BHAGs. Uh, we have like kind of like these circles that are these concentric circles or whatever. Um, and it's like they're all intertwined, and education's a part of that. So we actually do have like some paid courses that we sell for like design system training and stuff like that. But there's also like we've never done like cohorts before, stuff like that. We've done like paid training like with clients, so we know that there's something, a part of the business with education, that we want to like invest into at some point. But that's not like, there's no clear vision for that right now. Like, hey, these courses are kind of selling passively, and that's okay. We sometimes will do like testimonial ads on them, stuff like that, and they've kind of worked, but it's not like a priority. But we do know that education's a part of like our vision, and so which is like getting into that as a business, not just like, oh, we're doing YouTube content, we're doing articles. Like, how do we strategically like do that?
Yeah.
And that's also tied with like talent. So talent's also another thing. We're like, hey, how do we recruit talent not only for us but for our clients? So like, if for
Mm.
example, if a startup founder comes with us and we're like, hey, we'll get your startup off the ground, and then we'll actually like have someone coming in parallel on the project, working on the project with us, and they're trained on like how we do everything. They know how your product works. They know they start to learn the industry. They understand our process and approach, and then they can kind of go off, and you just hire them, and like they're a part of your crew, and you can trust them because we've kind of trained them in the way that we think and work, and those expectations are set, almost like a paid internship, so to speak. And then if they want to hire that person, they could. So that's something
Yeah.
we've thought about too, is like, hey, how do we figure out like the talent problem? Maybe not because we also understand like with AI development and like all these other tools that are happening and the speed of development. It's like, okay, how do we train people to think like strategically as a developer, strategically as a designer? So someone that they can trust, that can like really run with it, and be trained on like that, that process and approach, versus just like, oh, here's a junior dev or here's a junior designer, but like they can't really figure out how to go from here.
Yeah.
So that's something that we see is like, hey, there's definitely going to be like a talent gap to solve, of like, hey, where are all the strategic designers and developers that can really, they're like almost like mini CTOs. We're like, hey, they can come in, they may not be like the expert on everything, but they can help you like solve problems strategically from their perspective and from their role, versus just like a ticket taker, where they're like, hey, they're waiting for the next task from you or from like whoever else you're hiring to manage your product. Really like people that can take initiative. So that's something that we've thought about, is the talent part, and it's kind of tied to education, but it's also a different problem. um, so providing talent and recruitment is another part of that. And then the philanthropy part is like community. So like Startup Wisconsin is a part of that.
Yeah.
Startup Wisconsin, we took over in 2022. It was actually ran out of Milwaukee, by a gentleman named Matt Cordio. We took over ownership of it because we were already collaborating with him through Digital Fertilizer, representing Green Bay. And we decided to say, hey, we're gonna make a bet and like take this over and like have a bigger impact on the state instead of just our city. Um, and with that, we're like, hey, we're thinking about actually like building a team around Startup Wisconsin from a philanthropic effort. Like, are there grant dollars that we could get? Are there revenue streams we could create to potentially support this? Or could we get matching dollars from other corporate investors, in the state, that believe in the vision that we believe in, right? Because they're like,
Yeah.
hey, we want talent to live here, we want talent to thrive here and work here, like all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, so those are the things that we think through. As far as like, oh, another version of Intermode, like a different industry, like, hey, we're going to focus on just fintech, or we're just going to focus on healthcare. Um, that's not clear at all. Like, really, I think the whole thing is like, if we can get Intermode to work like really, really well, because all the signals are there in our sales pipeline, let's get that in a good position for the next 3 to 5 years first before we say let's do it again, because
Yeah.
like we just don't have the capacity. Like, we just, even with these other things like education, with the talent and recruitment type programs, like it's just, it takes someone to lead that effort and like actually do it well. And that's something we take to heart, because we're like, hey, we definitely are uh, very optimist people, and we have a lot of ideas and we have a lot of like energy, but we sometimes have to remind ourselves like, hey, we want to do all that stuff, but like, can we actually accomplish it? Probably not. Like, it's been a lot more, especially the past few years, more kind of like, so getting a more sober perspective. Like, yes, it's cool to have like kind of like this courage to try like crazy things, but at the same time you have to be like super real and be like, well, let's make sure like this business exists first in the next 2 years before we just
Yeah.
say, let's do another thing, let's do another thing. Really kind of figure out like, oh, is this a good healthy business, before we kind of invest in the next one.
Yeah. Kind of pace yourselves and not try
Yeah.
to bite off more than you can chew.
Yep.
Yeah. Makes a ton of sense. Well, Jacob, this has been super fun and interesting. I think there's a lot of takeaways that I think other agencies, especially dev agencies, could take away from this. For folks who want to, get to know you better or who want to learn more about either Intermode or Headway, what's the best way for people to follow up?
Yeah. Yeah. So my name's Jacob Miller. You can find me on LinkedIn. It'll say the Startup Wisconsin guy. Um, Otherwise, if you look up Startup Wisconsin, I'm sure you'll end up finding me there in the company page. But for Headway stuff, if anyone's actually interested in partnering with us on projects, we literally just launched quietly. I'll be publishing this week, like a more formal announcement. The Headway Partner Network, where you can formally apply and say, "Hey, if you're working on projects, we would love to work, on the projects as a contractor." So whether you're a freelancer or you're a small agency, like a boutique agency, we'd love to talk to you and learn about like how we can collaborate, as the demands of our projects and clients increase into the next year. So that's really exciting. So if you go to the headway.io is our website. If you go to the menu, you'll see Headway Partner Network, or it'll be in the footer. Um, Otherwise, headway.io/partner-network. uh, but yeah, you can find those things. And yeah, I think that's kind of it. I don't really uh, have much else to share. I might start a newsletter on LinkedIn or something, but that's about it.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Jacob, for coming on. And yeah, I'm looking forward to staying in touch.
Awesome. Love it. Thank you.
Thank you.